Welcome to the September community meeting. I do place the month in front of it now because I will be trying to keep these meetings consistent on a month-to-month basis. Of course, I'll try. Nobody's perfect, but yeah. So I'm gonna be going over just a few. Whoever the hell's mic is unmuted, mute it. Oh, Ultra, stop breathing. All right. So. Yeah, so the topics I listed in the announcement will be, we'll go over general community information, the support team, Mafia Roleplay Development, Mafia Roleplay ETA, maybe. I'm going to be defining ETA as a slightly different than what most of you are used to, but Mafia Roleplay Management, I'll go over the main people that will be involved in managing the server itself. Other miscellaneous Mafia Roleplay info, semi-serious City RP info, other stuff, and then we'll try to do a Q&A at the end. See how that goes. Alright, so for starters, I'm just going to go over the rules for this meeting. It essentially entitles every basic Discord rule that's in the rules channel, in addition to no posting memes or images that do not relate to the topic at hand in the meeting text channel. When your mic is unmuted during the Q&A, any ear rape or trolling will not be tolerated. Any spamming in the channel will be met with a ban. And this is kind of an unofficial one, but try to keep it cordial and relevant to the topic. If you're just memeing, I'll have a staff member remove you from the Discord based on your transgression. So, as I've been saying, if you are just bored and want to watch this later, the live stream is available, and that will be made public after the fact. Why does that guy keep leaving? Beta could get rid of that KJM guy if he keeps spam disconnecting. Alright, so just another thing, I'm going to start out with the just general community info. So I just want to go over kind of the chain of command. This is just in general, this does not pertain to any server. But so community directors are tasked with managing the community itself. We handle finance, we handle the managing of the servers, server maintenance as in the machinery that we use to host the servers and our website. Then just generally, managing this community. Community managers, their biggest responsibility is handling the staff team broadly. When community directors aren't in place, or just we aren't around really, because of an inactive slope, they generally take care of the community as a whole. I think my ping is. Okay, there we go. So community managers have their responsibilities kind of fluctuate based on what we tell them to do. They do have full access on every single server, which could entitle restart capabilities, basic server capabilities in terms of restart, start, and whatnot. Server managers, below that on the list, they do not have access on every single server. They are the managers of their specific servers. So that means, in some cases, their say overrides that of a community manager's. They have a say in who gets appointed to staff. They control, on an RP server, for example, they would control every RP event. That's essentially their say. On servers like our sandbox server, hosted by the Poob, it's kind of just the general manager, make sure that everything's okay, handles their own staff appointments. But for larger servers like Mafia RP, there's going to be a lot of more staff that the community managers and whatnot will preemptively appoint. So then administrators, they handle individual server administration. Some of them have been tasked with managing multiple servers, administrating multiple servers. So like global administrators like Marcuzzi and Canadian Bacon will be administrating on every single Nitoria server. Trial admins, they essentially uphold mostly the same permissions, obviously with the exclusion of a few, such as, web logs. Their source bands account is configured differently, and, general server permissions are slightly less powerful than that of a staff member's. The support team kind of acts as our human resources department. They help in the training of staff team. They help with helping the players answer their questions, general things like that. They aid in writing of guides for specific servers and just anything we need them to do. It's kind of a stepping stone towards regular administration for individual servers. So now that that's out of the way, I'll move on to my next topic, and that is actually the support team. So we are accepting support applicants. However, due to recent incidents of acceptance, we will be going about it a lot differently, in the sense of, if your application is accepted, we expect you to pass a simple test that essentially just questions you on basics of the guide that you're given preemptively. So it's nothing too hard if you read the guide. So, and if you're interested in becoming the member of the support team, it is a stepping stone to becoming staff, so I strongly recommend it. It's not a hard job. It's just a way to help out the community. So if you have any interest in that, check out our support applications channel and type I think it's support apply, something like that. Now that that's out of the way, I'll move on to our first major topic, that being a Mafia roleplay development. It's been, as much as it hurts to regret, 6 months of development for Mafia roleplay. I don't know if that's specific, but it's been roughly 6 months of Mafia roleplay being in development. I know that's practically unheard of in this community, in the Mafia RP community specifically, but do keep in mind this server's a lot bigger. There's this kind of misconception out there that we're promising some kind of utopian server. I mean, if you look at our public releases, it's really just facts on what we hope to achieve and just development features. So I wouldn't get swallowed up by the hype of it. Just try to stick to the facts and that we publicly release. Any ETA, any myth, anything you hear that's not coming out of my mouth or Ultra's mouth is most likely not true. If it's not posted on a public community forum, if it's not posted by a support team member in the support chat, then it is probably either a myth, a purposeful lie, or just a misconception on their part. But so into the specifics of development, for those who are maybe new here or just are too lazy to read the development channels, yes, the server's been in development for 6 months. I've been personally developing the map for it. I'd say it is 95% custom. A few buildings and a few little pieces here and there were borrowed from other maps. Nothing major really. It's but they are obviously the maps that some bits and pieces were used from were open source, and they allowed map creators to use it, and of course those creators will be credited in the credits somewhere. That might be on the map, that might be on a forum somewhere, but we will give them credit where credit is due. We're not taking credit for everything. That's why I say 95%, but apart from that other 5%, the map is pretty much completely custom. I wouldn't say, in my years in Gmod and just with Source Engine games, I haven't really seen any other map like it. The design is pretty unique. There's been like things somewhat like it, but nothing exactly like it in terms of layout. Most of the buildings are pretty simple. They're not like, I didn't go into immense detail on every single building in the effort to conserve brush material for other buildings, so we could have more. But obviously each building is thought out and practical. So there is quite a few buildings on the map, though. I'll go over each and every single section of the map. There is Brooklyn, Queens. I think at the last community meeting, or just, I think people don't know now, but it was originally intended for there to be Manhattan, which would be essentially a business district. and the higher end area housing things like the Empire State Building, City Hall, PD, and other higher end establishments. Since then, due to just limitations in general and just what I had left, I deemed it impractical to essentially duplicate something of what we had with the RP_New York_Toxics map. I was kind of looking for a completely new atmosphere, so I decided to be a little bit more creative with it. So that's why I decided to do Queens instead. There aren't really any skyscrapers on the map like we saw with RP_New York_Toxics. So if any of you don't like that, sorry, but it'd be like that. So yeah, Queens is essentially it's a lot smaller in terms of quantity and just size than the other districts on the map. There's not that many buildings, but the buildings themselves are higher end. They house better looking materials, and it's a nice area. It's not my favorite, but it's a nicer area. Houses the PD, City Hall, the bank, Vangles, which is the nicer end clothing store, the typical shops that are in every district, like dipped in apparel, ammunition, the gas station, and the vehicle customization and spawning garage. That's all in there, of course, like in every district. And the typical buildings. Now there's Brooklyn. Initially it was kind of a slum, not really. The only thing that really made it a slum was the interior textures, but I kind of revised those based on the fact that I deemed them as really unrealistic as to how I had them before. But in terms of decoration, I redid all the sidewalk textures, added in a lot of decals, trash props, trash decals, just making the buildings themselves, and just the general atmosphere of it a lot more grimy and unwelcoming in some areas. And yeah, but Brooklyn itself houses a lot of interesting buildings. It houses the hospital, a fighting arena, several bars, several restaurants, the general market, and of course dipped in apparel, vehicle customization and spawning garages, gas station. And this was newly added. I think it was showcased in the last development log, that being the train / subway / L train / whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like how the Toxics one was on the New York Toxics map. It's not like all secluded and teleporter based. The sense of you're thrown underground, you go from point A to point B into another teleporter, and then boom, you're in the Bronx. It's there is a teleporter portion of it. It's not the same in the sense of everybody runs into a wall and then they get stuck in each other and have to call an admin to come dissect one from one. But it is a lot more, better. I'd say the train itself is still the Half-Life 2 monorail subway looking train. But the train itself, its path is on the L train, like elevated platform that you might have seen in earlier screenshots. So the train itself does move in a publicly viewable area, so you could actually, as you're coming into Brooklyn, see the city from a nicer angle. But yeah, so it goes from Queens to Brooklyn, and they are basically right next to each other in the grand scheme of things. However, the tunnels, which is another thing I'm going to talk about, makes driving and public transportation and taking things like trains a necessity. Like the tunnels from like Queens to Riverside, for example, are extremely lengthy. Especially but Riverside to like Greenville is even longer. Like I timed to drive from point A to point B was about like 3 to 4 minutes. And I know in like the grand scheme of things that's like nothing, but in Gmod, in the cars, it kind of is. But there is also a vast bay, kind of nice like water area that connects Greenville and Riverside on both their fronts. The Greenville waterfront is houses Brooklyn and the beach. No, not Brooklyn. The boardwalk and the beach below it. Like it houses small little shops on the boardwalk, stands, and overhang-based buildings. Boardwalk's quite nice, and then the beach. It's a beach. What do you expect? And yeah, Greenville itself is a very white 1950s suburb. The houses themselves are based off of Vito Scaletta's house from Mafia 2. I basically carbon copied the design from just playing the game, and screenshot reference. Obviously the colors are all different, same with the interior patterns and whatnot, but the structure is a lot similar. The whole layout of Greenville is a lot like his neighborhood in Mafia 2. You'll see there's many aspects of the server that takes a lot of inspiration from Mafia 2, that be NPC names. They're not all Italianos. It's a lot of them. Just a lot of NPCs are named after Mafia 2 characters, and a lot of businesses like Dipped in Apparel and Evangels are named after that. So there's a common theme here and there. But so anyways, getting back to Greenville. Greenville is kind of a lot similar to Greenfield from Mafia 2, predictably, and just without the extremely complex geometry. I tried my best at. I didn't really plan to recreate it. I kind of just took a little inspiration here and there, but the outcome was nice. A lot of screenshots do center around Greenville, so if you have the time, just look in the development showcase for that. Riverside came out very well, in my opinion. Houses several little warehouses. The smaller warehouses, I credit to Statua. I used his little warehouses from Rockford V2 and V1. Very nice. But the larger ones are just empty ones that I put together in a few minutes. And then there's storage containers. Not storage containers. Ooh, yikes. Bade, you want to get on that?
Hold on, give us a second, Angry. We're handling it.
Alright. Well, take that intermission. You can all... Alright, sorry about that. But, anywho. Oh. Just, take your time, staff team, if you handle this. Just ban anybody with that name, I guess.
Dealt with.
Alright. Just ban them. Now, anyways, so Riverside came out very nice. There's many little storage units that are purchasable, a few $100s, that are right on the port. So obviously nice shipping access and just a nice area to be in. Want to handle that? Just throw down the regular Discord ban handle. Well, they're funny people. Anyways, so Riverside has a lot of complexity and detail to it. A lot of props, a lot of decals, and just selected detail. Whoever's mic, could you mute, please? Poob. But yeah, so. Yeah. Riverside itself does house a lot of server features, but I'll get into that in a second. But the map itself, I think most of you will like it. It's a kind of a breath of fresh air, because a lot of Mafia RP maps kind of just recycle the same buildings. I'm guilty of that. That's what RP New York was. So this is, as I said, 95% of the buildings are all completely custom made. So very new experience to mess around with. Now moving on to features. Features themselves, a lot of them I will keep private, just for fresh. You can see them yourselves, and the fact that I might change a lot of things about them. So I won't name everything, but I'll go over core features. Core features include things like. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Core features include things like NPC dialogue. I know that's nothing special, but that's the first thing I started off with. It's very. I coded an entirely custom user interface for it, and in addition to that, the vendor system. We don't really use the bland default not script vendors. I kind of really came up with my own system for it, which leads to a lot of customization with the NPCs themselves. Like an example of that would be in an ammunition on the map. If you wanted to, per se, buy a gun, you need a gun license to do that, at least at the legal gun store. So the NPCs would bar you from purchasing a gun if you did not have a license or something of that sort. Yeah, but of course things like that, like gun licenses, are up to the city council to customize, change, add, repeal, replace, however they choose. The city council is a completely player-governed body. We are no longer, to my knowledge, I think we maxed out on all seats, are accepting people for it. Methods of obtaining a city council seat will probably change in the future, dependent on member counts further down the road. So keep that in mind. Other features individually, I'll just go over some small things like the car dealership. It's like you can purchase your car at the car dealership and spawn it at a modification shop anywhere on the map. Not anywhere on the map. There's garages around pretty much every single district where you can spawn your car, and preemptively there won't be that many customization options, but like I think I'll just start out with the rudimentary, like color it, but in the future there will be things like engine modifications and things of that nature. So yeah, now I'm not going to touch on every single feature because a lot of these are things you can just find in the Mafia roleplay channel. I haven't really censored you all from that many features. Obviously a few here and there, just in case I change things, and people, when there's things in development, get very antsy and feel that it's definitive in some way. So I'll get back to features in a little while. I want to move on to the ETA, that being a time window, and why this has taken so long, why it's continuing to take long, and just why development is taking as long as it is. As it stands, myself, personally, I've been the only developer for the past 6 months. Ultra does a lot of other development pieces such as weaponry and things of that nature, like swept customization and just general schema maintenance and whatnot. He hasn't stepped in quite yet because I haven't put up an official development server that he can connect to and help me with. So for the past 6 months, it has just been me riding the horse. So that's probably answers a lot of questions. We're not a game development company. We do not have a team of developers actively dedicating their every waking breath to this project. So keep that in mind. Again, I try to dedicate as much time as I possibly can to this project. Balancing my life and the development of these servers is sometimes hard. I try to get at least at minimum 2 hours in a day of development. Obviously that's not always possible, but some days I can dedicate more than 4 hours to development. So obviously it's a fluctuating thing, but most days it's usually an hour or two to development. So if there's some kind of notion, at least I've heard, that we're just sitting back, not doing anything, purposely slowing down this project, it's as stupid as it sounds. It's just not true. I dedicate so much time to this project. I would never intentionally slow it down. I'm going as humanly fast as I can. And this notion that we should put up a server that doesn't have that many features and update it over time or something like that is just idiotic. And I'd never do that. And a lot of the reasons it's been slowed down is because of just errors and things that are completely out of my control, such as map compile errors. Keep in mind, this is a server on a game that is older than maybe some of you that even play it, on an engine that's older than a lot of us. The capabilities of it, there isn't just a big playing field of capabilities. The map editing software that I use myself, Hammer, is extremely old, outdated, slow, and just packed to the brink with issues, errors, and things of that nature. So, even I'm not some master map creator. Never. This is like the second big map I've ever made. So, but even if I were, some of these errors are unavoidable and just things you have to run into when making things like this. So, again, I'd say this server would have been done 2 months ago had these errors not come arise. So, again, keep that in mind. Now, with that being said, I do not have an ETA. The map itself compiled fine a while ago. That's been the biggest weight of this project. The map compiled fine, but upon a second glance at it, there wasn't that much detail that I put into. We were just missing a few elements, such as, the train. There was just an empty track. There was no clubs, so I went back, did a lot of revision, did a lot of addition, and then, of course, I've been running into errors recently that have prevented me and kind of slowed me down. Obviously, I'm going to find a fix by whatever means, but I will find a fix, and I will try to fix things. But just keep in mind, we are trying our best to put this out as soon as humanly possible. The complaining and the general bitching that the server is taking so long is not helping. If you go to the support team and complain that it's not out sooner, that doesn't do anything. Like, it only slows us down because we have to respond to your complaint and make sure you're not going off the rails and violating Discord rules. It's just, you gotta be patient. This is probably one of the bigger Mafia RP projects that has been in development. I don't think I've seen in my time in Mafia RP a project this big. I'm not saying it's greatness in its pure form. I'm just saying this is a large project with a lot of completely custom content, a completely custom map. Like, these things take time. And if you guys want some low FPS, half-assed, bare bones content server, then you're not in the right place. So, yeah, I just needed to get that out there. But speaking, if some of these issues can be blown through and quickly and soon, it could be out within the month. But again, I never give out ETAs because then people complain if they're not met on the dime. So that's just a speculation, as all my other predictions have been. Now moving on to Mafia Roleplay Management. So obviously, if you can't read, Tom Sleeper on Discord. If you want to know why he has that nickname, because he always falls asleep on his mic. So so Tom is the manager of Mafia RP. He will be overseeing a lot of staff appointments, supervising events, supervising aspects of it, such as the commission, the government, the police department. Just a bunch of key factors that he'll be the grease that keeps the wheel running. So, yeah. A lot of your problems, such as high-end PKs and things of that nature, need to be directed towards him. Community directors and community managers do not have to get involved with that. Now, so in addition to Tom, the community management team will also have a helping hand in running the Mafia RP server. They will be the upper of upper staff in the server. So all your high-end questions should be directed towards them. If it's not a matter of importance, that's personal, you can of course take it up in the support team channel. So yeah. Now, in terms of when the server is live and how the management will play out, Ultra, I can't speak for him, but for me personally, I will be taking a very big backseat. I've been developing this for 6 months straight. Yeah, kind of need a break after staring at Hammer Editor for a few hours a day. So I will be taking somewhat of a backseat. Not preemptively, not the second the server starts. I'm going to go to Hawaii and never come back and touch a piece of technology again. I'm just going to take a slow backseat a few weeks after the server goes up, after everything development-wise is A-OK. and I will kind of let the designated management team run the server smoothly. I'll pop my head in from time to time, make sure everything isn't going to hell, but I won't be that. I'll be the absent father. I'll stop in on your graduations and occasionally a baseball practice, but nothing major. So, yeah. But I can't speak for Ultra. The community management team will be here to help run the server smoothly. But again, your hiring questions to be directed towards community management, not community manager, the community managers, and the designated server manager. In which case that could be plural. So, yeah. Now moving on, I'm gonna touch back on that later. But other miscellaneous Mafia RP information, a subject of which I think was a lot of. I'll move on to factions. On other servers, including ones we've managed, Men of Respect, Toxics, things of that nature, we are handled factions completely differently than how we're running them this time. With the resources I've accumulated and the content I've made and just all the effort I put into this, a lot of old precedents that had been set on previous Mafia RP servers no longer have to be a thing. An example of that is every single group in organized like crime faction or just company needing to have a faction designated in their name to run their operations, do what they want to do. That is completely obsolete. With the new systems I've made, such as permanent property, decoration, and just systems such as that, it renders having to have a faction to run high-capacity organizations completely obsolete. So, if you're like running a gang of 4 people, for example, you won't need to have a faction in your name. Now, that being said, a lot of the gangs that have applied will not be accepted, and that's not a lot. That's a definitive thing. Factions are now in place practically for the purpose of suiting factions of a high member count, and don't take that in the wrong way. That's just a practical thing, because for gangs with lower member counts that need to have a designated racket, such as being able to supply other factions and groups with opium, for example, the way I can add in systems like that and whitelist the designated people to do such activities is by Steam ID. When you get to factions with 40 or like 20 plus member counts, so I have to send my staff team in to single-handedly get every single person in that faction's Steam ID to the T and make sure that Steam ID is valid is hectic and just not practical. So that's the reason factions are even still a thing. But, so yeah, just keep that in mind. But, you know, low-rank gangs don't really need factions anymore. I have the resources now to make that not necessary at all. So yeah, just but obviously some gangs will be provided assistance from server management. Like some gangs that we have high faith in will probably be given small little paychecks to run their factions, not factions, but groups, in the hopes of setting a good precedent and example towards other factions in their category. But most other groups, companies are no longer able to receive a faction, but mobs, and take that term with a grain of salt, that's kind of a general term we throw around now, are of course able to receive the faction status because of, you know, member accounts and just because of how they run themselves. Factions like Bratvas, Irish-based syndicates, you know, Asian-based syndicates like Triads and things like that are able to receive factions. If it's predetermined that eventually, after a month or so of their acceptance into the faction realm of things, that they have like the same amount of members as that of a gang, their faction status might be removed. But the whole precedent of the member counts is for practical reasons, as I stated. We don't care if your faction has 300 people or if it has 5. It is all about roleplay. This is a roleplay server. Yes, there is a lot of, you know, content and and code and these systems that make gameplay fun. But at the end of the day, this is a role-play server, and it is a game. People are supposed to come here and have fun and enjoy their experience here, and us here at upper management and server management are here to make sure that that experience is fun. So yeah, this isn't a form of income for any of us, or anything of that nature. This is just something I think a lot of us just like doing, and like providing to other people. So keep that in mind. But so if your gang has like 5 people and you guys are exceptional role plays, that opens you up to a realm of opportunities and support to receive to make sure your gang continues forward and has resources to do so. But obviously, but there's no double standard in terms of how we administrate with families versus gangs, or bravas versus families, or anything of that kind of merit. Like, if a family is abusing just because they're a family, we're not going to be like, okay, stop. Obviously, everybody's going to be given a warning, but if you're just intentionally trolling, regardless of what your faction status is, or even if you have a faction, you'll be handled, dependent on your transgression, not the title that you wield. So there's no double standard in that regard. And yeah, in terms of families specifically and other mob-based factions that have the ability to receive a faction, if your faction was denied, if your faction application was denied, or if your faction application was denied, or we told you, like, we just want to see how you do, that could be for a bunch of reasons. It could be because of the conduct that you have exemplified in our discords on our other platforms, or if the upper management team mutually decided, server management, the CMs and the community directors had no part in faction acceptance. But if the server management team just mutually agreed that you shouldn't be granted a faction based on the prosecutities and precedents you've set in other servers, like the roleplay they've seen on other servers where you've basically waved the same flag, then that could have been a ground for not allowing you to have a faction on here. Again, as I said, the conduct you showed in this Discord on our other platforms, such as our forums, that could have played a part in it as well. Yeah, so I just felt like I needed to touch that subject because a lot of people complained that their factions got denied, or they claimed bias or something of that nature. That was not the case at all. Alright, let's move past that. Let's move on to semi-serious city RP. I know a lot of you here don't really care about it. It's moved, but keep in mind, Nitoria was started for that purpose, so it is a theme we're going to keep here. A server we're going to keep running here. The specifics on it are really mixed, because Nitoria was originally started to be something like Chronet. Chronet, if none of you know, I'm not going to take time to explain it, but it was supposed to provide a similar experience with better management, updated content, but generally the same kind of game mode and same guiding principles. Now, since deals were made, such as mergers and things like that, between Chronet and Nitoria and other, just a lot of things have happened in that area. It's unsure as to how we're going to go about it now. The biggest plan I'm probably going to stick to is by keeping it up on a trial period somewhat, meaning no donating, nothing of that sort, and seeing how people receive it. Now, as a gesture of such, I'm not, after Mafia RP is done, I'm not going to instantaneously jump into the development of semi-serious. No. As I said, I'm not going to be that active a little while past the release, so all of that will be handled in the winter, semi-serious wise, closer to the anniversary of Nitoria being a thing, that being in late January or early February, something like that. So keep that in mind. Now, the specifics for it, I'm not going to lay out quite yet. That'll probably come in a community announcement. Moving on to our category, brilliantly labeled, etc. I don't really have much else to add. Ultra, you got anything?
Not really.
All right, any CMs here have anything you might want to add before we move on to Q&A? Okay. Question and answer time. That means let's try to keep it civil. If you, yeah, as Benny said, you can speak now in the text channel. I'd say keep your questions. Let's be serious here, folks. There's like quite a few of you, so I want to keep this, organized. If you want to if you have like a lengthy question or you just want me to see it better, say voice. Just say voice, and I'll grant you speaking permission. Alright, Vested. If I can find you. Bane, I'm just going to say a name, and if you could find it and unmute it for me, that'd be great. Alright. Well, Vested, what's your question?
I have a couple. I just wrote them down while you were talking. But, so first, for the permanent properties, since you're allowing people to just build whatever they want inside of it, how are you going to control that not being laggy?
A good question. I completely forgot about that. Right off the bat, there are restrictions as to how many props you can put down, what kind of props, and yeah, so you can't like spam a million, like oranges in a corner that would cause lag. And in addition to that, since perma props are extremely taxing on the machine and just the server itself, there will be regular scheduled permaprop wipes every now and again. Probably I've set the norm to be about every 2 weeks. We'll just wipe player permaprops. Now a lot of you probably have your reservations about that, but that's we're gonna encourage you to, if you, let's say you built like a nice bar or something and you put down a few tables and whatnot and you really don't want to do it again, I'd say advance dupe it, then permaprop them. Then when the wipe occurs in a few weeks or days or whenever the hell you put it down, you can just put it back and permaprop it again. So that's a system and a routine I'd recommend a lot of you getting into. But so does that answer your question?
Yeah. And then I think you talked about it last meeting. You said something about how you were like wanting prison RP to be a little bit more involved. How are you still planning to do that, or has that been done?
Yep.
How's that going?
There is a full designated prison on the map. Very large, at least. I think it's one of the largest prisons I haven't seen incorporated into a regular roleplay map. Obviously, it's probably nothing in comparison to like jail maps for the jailbreak game mode or things like that, but it is quite large. It houses general population, like many like smaller individual cells, visitation area, recreation room, shower, lamau, and the nicer end cells for people of interest, as they will be labeled. Those cells might not even be used. That depends how the police department is in terms of corruption and whatnot. But RP itself, I know there's a few people that are interested in setting up gangs within the prison. I'm completely fine with that, but they can't really expect a faction. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that kind of aspect of roleplay, and we'll see how that works. But
okay. Is there any like specific way you can escape prison or way you can break people out?
I've answered this question several times in like voice channels, so I don't expect you to know
just ignore it then.
No,
I don't want to waste anybody's time.
You to know it. So I will say this publicly, so I don't have to repeat again. But it is, by the definition of possible, but extremely complicated because of several. Like the prison itself is the large basement of the PD. There are several security gates in front of the main doors that lead into the general population, as well as several doors that lead down the stairs to the prison that are automatically locked upon the entry of upon when the server goes up. So, boy, you need a whole team to break like one guy out of prison. So it's possible, but not practical or easy. So, you have any more questions?
All right, just one more. You said a lot about how you're gonna like help out factions and maybe give them money or just encourage roleplay. How's that gonna be like balanced for smaller groups or just people who are on their own? I feel like factions can get pretty out of hand quick.
Yeah, the gangs that we have faith in RP wise and larger factions, larger like groups in general will be granted, small like fees. Like let's say a family designates one little bar in a specific area that they want to control, or a gang wants this one little garage in this area that they want to control. Well, we'll allocate them the funds to pay for the building itself because that's done by them. There's no doors set by admins. That goes hand in hand with the permanent property system. But so they'll be allocated those funds. And then there will be, of course, smaller funds set with that. So that will give them funding to do whatever the hell they want with. Give them that little leg up, buy food for their bars, buy equipment, and things of that nature. So,
Alright.
Yeah.
That's it, dude. Thank you.
In addition to that, before I forget, if you run an establishment, doesn't matter if you're a citizen or if you're in a faction, if you run a establishment, like a casino, a bar, a restaurant, something of that nature, you will receive a recurring paycheck based on a few categories, that being your roleplay, your intake of customers, and there might be a few, but those are adaptable based on server rules and how the server management team wants to go about it. So yeah, it's a good way to encourage roleplay, and in the past, in the other servers, running a bar was not profitable, even though realistically it kind of should be if you're getting a lot of members. So yeah, that will encourage a lot of RP, and it just has an incentive to actually open up a restaurant or something in a money sense. So does anybody else want voice access? Just drop the word voice. Alright, Hendrix. Yeah, unmute him.
Alright, hello? Can you hear me loud and clear? Alright. So, what I was going to say, I didn't really hear you, if you already answered it, but I have two questions, which go hand in hand. Why can't gangs be official, and will that ever change?
I kind of answered this. Gangs, by the definition, are just small little groups that, they role play. Now, being official and having a faction on this server are completely different. There are some similarities with the two. Like, obviously, to have a faction, you have to be official, but you can be official without having a faction. Being official essentially grants you acknowledgement by the server management team, which can leave you access to perks, such as receiving paychecks to continue with the RP that has been deemed good by upper management, server management. So, like, if we see a small gang, they're very good at RPing with their, little garage or something, then the staff team will say, alright, they're good, and we can, give them certain permissions that other people aren't granted, and small little recurring paychecks to aid them in their little thing. But
I have one more question.
Yep.
Will there be if cars are injured or whatever, I'm not sure how the car system is going to work, but will people be able to, fix them and get money for it? Or is there just an RP aspect that you have to do?
I was going to designate car repair to an actual business ran by players. I could have made it an actual system, but I thought leaving it in the hands of RP would have been a wiser decision. So that's not determined. Preemptively, there will probably be just things in place to fix your car, but that's just until we can designate a small group of people to running like a garage or something somewhere to go hand in hand with car repair. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Alright, I'll just answer a technical and then. Will there be two server if one gets full, etc.? If there is it going to keep the same data from server 1? No. There will not be. if one server's getting maxed out, we can look at other options. But having two servers sharing the same database will cause a lot more problems, and then fix them, and especially with this community and how these servers are ran. So yeah, that's a no from me, dog. I'll just answer a few more text ones. Does anybody want voice? Just drop voice. All right, Marcuzzi. Bae, do you wanna?
What's up, guys? Just a few questions. Specifically because back on Cronet, I used to run a bar, among other things, in terms of business. So how are we going to be balancing? Because back on Cronet, obviously, you could go to the supermarket, buy alcohol, or go to the supermarket, buy various other things. What systems do you have in place for people who actually want to run businesses to make a profit and to have a player-run economy?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I said, the economics incentive for people to drop a few $1,000s to pay off like a restaurant or a bar or something on previous servers, making that kind of investment was borderline pointless because you could never really turn a profit and make that worthwhile. On this, or as I said, there will be recurring paychecks given to restaurant and bar owners based on the quality of their RP, the customer intake, and again, other categories. That'll be at the discretion of the server management team.
Okay, well then, besides the staff-run paychecks, will there be any system implemented, like importing products and something more RP rather than just getting money from the gods? You know what I mean?
Yeah. With that, food and restaurant and eating establishments specifically, there will be like certain foods are just hard to conjure up on previous Mafia RP servers. You just, I'm hungry, I have an eating permit, time to fucking just snap my fingers and pizza will come from the sky.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this kind of system goes hand in hand with many other things, like the fear of death incentive, and that's probably the biggest one, because death is a taxing thing. You have to pay fees when you respawn. You have to, and it's just a lengthy process, and it can really drain your wallet and be time consuming to be dying every minute because you're too stubborn to go to a bar or a restaurant. So, but certain foods, I haven't really fleshed this out completely. I haven't gotten to that area of development yet, so bear with me. But there will probably be a cooking system of some sort that's more hands-on and interactive and complicated, that would require something of a restaurant to have to go through that process and make it for like food that actually raises your HP and whatnot. Not HP, your hunger and thirst. So yeah, but
and on that note, will there be like a hunger and thirst thing going on?
Yep, there's hunger and thirst. They're two separate variables.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Anybody else want voice? Drop it. While we wait for people to drop that in, I'll just answer some of these texts. Bade, you can unmute Archnid Spooderman, but I won't hear his question out until I read a few text ones. What server host will we have? I'm not really gonna make that public. I'm just gonna say it's competent enough. Are we going to make sure that we don't have huge syndicates that bully new groups? Like, what if half this? No. The server management team will not party into making sure factions aren't too powerful. Obviously, events that are more aggressive will probably more likely be geared toward higher end factions, but the whole aspect of having large factions and large alliances between those big factions is a large part of Mafia RP. This whole precedent that gangs should be trying to rival larger factions like the Mafia and the Commission as a whole is just stupid, really. It just does not make sense because they are there to stay. It's like an immovable object, and the notion that they should somehow be rivaled by outsiders and those outsiders should be given tools and just aid into their quest to conquer factions and organizations such like that. It's just not. We're not really partying any of that. Poison food, no. How are you going to handle wars between groups to avoid spawn killing and other issues that are quite prevalent? In order to not waste so much time, I'd say take a look at some of our guides. If one of our support team members here could link him to some of those, that'd be great. So yeah, it covers a lot of that in those guides, and almost to the T. So yeah, recommend reading those. And okay, voice Archnid Spider-Man, you're welcome to ask your question.
Alright, hey Baldman.
How are you doing?
I'm good. And you? You're good?
Yeah, pretty good.
Alright, that's good. So I was wondering if we could talk about the bank.
Go right ahead.
I
You
mean,
want me to talk about the bank?
Yeah.
Alright, so the bank will be ran by players. I won't really be setting aside any forms of automated features for it, because the only thing that I could really make automated for it is like basically an ATM, just an NPC, which is kind of pointless unless there's interest, and that's just highly unnecessary. So the bank itself, like the physical building and the principle of a bank, will be completely player ran, in the sense of there will be people that purchase offices above it and will be able to control it. You can buy stocks at the bank, like in companies. However, buying stocks themselves requires a broker's license, which is expensive. So if you're interested in investing, you're probably gonna go to a firm, be like, all right, here's a few thousand, invest it where you think is a good idea, and pay me at the end of the week, or something like that. That's how most investment will be done. On the other servers, it would just be 1,000 people crammed into one bank, running around, investing their money everywhere, which I just thought was messy and not really RP. So that whole broker's license will be very, will help with that. So, but with the bank itself, how the specifics of it will be predetermined by the people that have been tasked with somewhat running it. So that's up to Geo here to run, as well as his partner. So we'll see how that goes. I'll have details for that closer to release, probably. Anybody else here have a question or wants voice permissions or something? Just drop that in meeting. What's your question?
My question is about drug and beer producing. Will that be a thing, or will we not have that?
Who's that? Who's this speaking?
My name's XDM28. Latbo, Urban Von Sturb.
Okay. Methods of making money like this in the past on servers I've ran or made or owned. The systems themselves were good for making money, but that's not the point of playing on these servers. It's really RP, and those systems like that completely destroyed RP. They do exist in the core, in the sense of there are systems where you can make things like that. However, to obtain the machinery and the materials for that requires a lot of RP. Not in the sense of, like, you have to go to somebody and they have to get it from an admin. The systems themselves are completely automated. Just in order for you to get, like, from a player's perspective, it's not automated. From the grand perspective, it's completely automated. For example, if you wanted to make morphine or something, you'd have to find a faction, or just a group, doesn't even have to be a faction, that sells the drug lab or the chemical mixer to make it. After you buy it from them, if they even sell it, you then have to get the materials to make it, which you would have to go to another faction or group or just individual that
So
sells
you're
it.
saying the production of drugs and alcohol, anything like that, is going to be dependent on players
Yes.
to get the materials?
Yep. And so, because a lot of people have their reservations about that, because, I just want to make
you
money.
don't want it to be like Dark RP.
Yeah, we don't want it to be like Dark RP. Any other questions?
Now, with the food thing, will it be very intense on how often you have to get food?
I mean, it's a randomated variable, but it's between a few hundred seconds and stuff, so it's not like every 2 minutes you have to eat something, but every like maybe 10 minutes you might need to start looking into eating something, which I think is pretty reasonable. We'll see how it plays out.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Alright, Bade, mute him and unmute the gaming drool.
Hey, so how would we know? How would the staff decide what factions get to sell what drug-making machine or what supplies?
Larger on factions like families and such, we usually gave them the luxury of having a kind of suggestion and an input as to what they want to do, and kind of set a lines. Like, keep in mind, a lot of these automated systems of making money aren't just drugs. There's a lot of importing things, exporting things, crafting a few things, exporting them, and a lot of other automated systems that, like, drugs. I mean, it's an easy thing to automate, but it's kind of unrealistic in a lot of senses. So it's not the only means of making money in an automated fashion. But for the automated systems in general, they're usually dissed out based on, sometimes it can be the suggestion of players, or just predetermination by the admin team. Like, if they think if they have reservations towards a gang and they're like, I don't know how they'll do, we'll give them a lower end racket that doesn't have that large of an effect on the general population of the server, like being able to supply opium wood. Yeah. Alright.
Alright, so what if in RP, say, triads, for example, in RP, drugs get illegally imported into the U.S. from China. Is that allowed, or how would that work?
To the server manager about that.
Alright.
The feature itself is obviously a thing, but to get access to that, I'd recommend taking that up in the support channel or with Tom himself. Any other questions?
I'll make sure to talk to him about that.
Any other questions? Okay. Anybody else have any questions or anything of that nature? Just drop voice or I have a question in the meeting text channel. Beta when you see him do it. Anybody else have any kind of question, anything like that? You can just drop it in text or accents.
Yeah. So, again, I'm part of Triads. Am I allowed to have a Chinese accent, or is that mingy?
I mean, it's up to your predetermination. If you're gonna try a Chinese or like Asian-based accent, I mean, if you want to be taken seriously,
because I feel like it's unfair. Because people are talking about like Joe Pesci. Hey, I'm Joe Pesci, and you know, it's just unfair how sometimes people can't do other accents. You know.
I mean, an accent isn't a requirement to RP. Like, I personally.
Okay, but will it be allowed?
Why wouldn't we allow it?
To show that character's origin and how they
I
talk.
said, why wouldn't we allow it?
I don't know, because if you don't want to be Joe Pesci RP and everyone has to be Italian.
We've never made any kinds of determination anywhere where you can't have an accent. If you want to have an accent for your character, you're welcome to do that. If you're gonna be mingy with it, the staff team will probably talk to you. If you're gonna do it stupidly enough, then I mean probably nobody's gonna take you seriously, and you won't be able to RP at all. It's your discretion. We don't really police how you choose to speak, unless it's purposely retarded. All right. Anybody else have any kind of question? Here. Alright, unmute Mark Reason.
Right. As we were talking about mafias and stuff, I just thought of another one. So, I assume that when you guys design the commission, there's going to be factions that people apply for that get, or families rather, that get put on the commission to start off with, right? And there'll be the ones that are pretty much the base for the actual mafia roleplay, yeah?
What?
Was I not clear? Sorry.
Yeah. I don't really
So
understand your question.
you make the commission, you're going to have some, what, 6 families that people apply to make, and then they'll be the base for the commission?
They're the starters of it. The way the commission works.
So
is
how will the Oh wait, sorry. That was my question. Had something else. Do something else. So obviously, when a player's PK'd, you know they're dead in the eyes of RP, right? So will there be any way to safeguard against, you know, like I'm the Don or whatever. I'm high ranking in this one mafia, and then my friend in real life dies in RP, and then creates a new character, and then I like quickly move him through the ranks to become the same rank he was before. How are we gonna prevent that from happening?
It's just not allowed. If you preemptively put a character in your faction or something as a means of, if your character got PK'd and you just want to seize power again, that just won't be allowed. I've talked to that's been noted in several guides, and we just don't allow that. Having two characters in the same faction that's not government or police is not allowed. Any other questions?
Wait. I wasn't talking about the same person. Like nepotism, essentially, but not in a meta nepotism. I guess it would be a good way to put it.
So, Marcuzzi, can I answer this?
Go right ahead.
Right. So, in the Mafia Guide, it states that the commission has to approve of making people. So,
okay. I get it.
So, with like the whole nepotism things, a lot of the time the commission just won't approve the guy.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. My bad.
All right. Any other questions? Drop them in meeting text or just a way to get your question out now. It doesn't matter how outrageous it is, as long as it's serious. Just all right. I guess that's it. Now with an SETA, I already talked about that. It comes when it comes. I doubt it will be that much longer, but you can take that how you take it. In terms of a next community meeting, one will be mapped out closer to when we decide to hold it. It'll probably be in October, so not for a while. But yeah, so I will see most of you all at that around the Discord, and I'll take any last minute question you may have. Now, you got 1 minute. You can just say voice if you just want to say it over mic. Alright. Hey.
So, I'm pretty sure you already told me this, but I just had to ask again. Like, so the actual houses, like the one that looks like Vito's in Mafia 2, those are going to have garages from which we can spawn our cars from, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The houses you can purchase in Greenville do allow people to have access to the garage, which would entitle free access to mod and spawn their vehicles. But obviously, that'd only be people that have ownership of the house. That'd be if you set the property to faction ownership, or if it's just yours, you'd only be able to do that. And that's automated. And so yeah.
One more thing also.
Yep.
So, you know how there are going to be 2 separate like clothing stores, right? Like in Mafia 2?
There are 4 dipped in apparels all around the map that you can buy regular clothing from, like, you know,
But there's one like Van Gel's, right? Which is like the expensive like suits, right? So is there going to be like certain clothing items that you can't get it, anywhere else, and they're like more expensive, or they're just going to be the same ones, just more expensive?
They're different ones, like a nicer, more 3-piece suit with like it's kind of hard to show without visuals, but the nicer suits as determined by us will be available there. not at Dipped in Apparel for a much higher price.
Okay.
It's kind of like the, I don't even know where I was going with that. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Alright. Quick question, can the city council create bills prior to server launch that will have small effect on overall server and have council votes to have those bills implemented on launch date? Mic is broken, so I can't talk. Apologies. No. Will you have a character? Bald man. Probably not. Any other questions? Voice, Bade, get on that.
Question: will there be Pack 3?
Yes, it'll be a purchasable item at any Dipped in Apparel on the map. That being the clothing store. You don't gotta pay for it with your actual money. It's all achievable through in-game. It's labeled in RP as clothing supplies, so it's kind of expensive, but you know, at least you can get it in the game.
Okay,
any other
thank
questions? All right. Anybody else have any other questions? You gonna let me? No. Alright folks, that wraps everything up. Any other questions you may have, don't PM me, don't PM Tom, unless it's personal, don't PM CMs unless it's personal. Ask and support. They're always taking questions, that's their damn job. And yeah, I'll see most of you around the Discord on the server, don't PM Poop either, or at the next community meeting, whenever the hell that is. If you have a friend that wasn't able to make it, I'll have this video will be available on YouTube. And yeah, so I'll see you all later. Have a good night. Don't die. Alright, see y'all.